back to another episode of The Banana Show where we speak about everything self-help and mental health related. And today we're going to talk alcoholism with Chris, who is a business analyst from Canada. And we will be hearing more about him shortly when he gets on. Remember to like, subscribe, share. And if you have Apple Podcasts, leave a comment in the comment section, feedback, anything that you want to leave in the comment section, except nasty comments. But we'll see you in the interview. This is going to be very insightful because we know that a lot of Jamaicans suffer from alcoholism, and this is a lot of information that our culture can relate to. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the interview. Okay, so thank you for coming on the podcast, Chris. I am so happy to have you. And we are going to go ahead and get into the interview. First of all, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great today. If you hear a random, it sounds like a chainsaw or something operating. I think there's construction going on around here. So if you hear that, don't worry about it. No one's getting murdered. It's all good.
All right, that's okay. So for alcoholism, tell us
Mhm.
a little about how it started, the background story of it.
Okay, so I wouldn't consider myself one, but I have had there is I think I at some point may have gone down that road had I gotten there. There's a lot of alcoholism in my family, namely on my father's side. My dad is an alcoholic. He is not
Same.
dealing with it though. He's sort of in denial about it. My aunt is also she is a recovering alcoholic. She has not drank for uh, as long as I can remember, at least 20 years or so, because she can't have a drink. As soon as she has one, she just starts right back up again. And I have a number
Oh,
of aunts and uncles on my dad's side who have a very probably unhealthy relationship with alcohol. Very, if they drink in excess every time. It's never just one or two. So, but I wouldn't say it's something that they become dependent on, like they have to have a drink or anything like that. But my dad in particular, I know it's been an issue for him for many years, and it's one of the reasons why my mom eventually left him after we grew up and moved away.
oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah, for myself, I have gone through a number of bouts with very deep depression in my life. I wasn't suicidal per se, but I did give it a really long amount of thought. I very strongly considered it at a number of points in my life. Um, I got to the point where I was drinking just to kind of numb the pain, and I found that I had more difficulty getting intoxicated, just because when
The
you're depressed,
tolerance.
yeah, that's what I found anyway. It was my tolerance went up, and it was just it wasn't doing anything. And I just, for me personally, I reached a just kind of like a rock bottom type deal where and it's different for everybody, but for me it was more, I was just sitting alone drinking like right from the bottle. And I didn't want to feel like that anymore. So I just kind of I invested in hobbies, got myself some help in the form of therapy and things like that. And there is there is a path that I could have gone down for sure, where I would have ended up like my dad, like an alcoholic. So, yeah, I think they're like very closely linked for a lot of people, because it becomes a vice that you rely on to not feel the depression.
I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't believe we should, like, when we are depressed or sad or feeling extreme emotions, I don't feel like we should take any form of substances, because I feel like how it makes you feel is going to make you want to go back to it again. Like weed
Yeah.
or drugs or alcohol, just
Hmm.
don't do it when you're in that type of state, and be mindful when you want to partake in stuff like that.
Yeah.
When did you realize, how did the self-awareness kick in?
Um, it was more, it's, I, I suppose alcoholics refer to it as a moment of clarity. It's just, you just, you for me, it was just like I said, I was sitting around by myself trying to get drunk, being unable to get drunk, drinking right from the bottle, like very cheap whiskey, just right from the bottle, just looking around and going like, what am I doing with my life? And I hate feeling this way, so why am I making it worse? Because if you look at, and alcohol is a depressant, so it, chemically it makes you feel more of the same. Really, it doesn't actually help. So I'm like, I'm a smart guy, like why am I doing this to myself, right? And so it was just, I just resolved to, I'm like, I hate feeling like this, I don't want to feel like this anymore. I just, because this isn't productive, I'm not getting any better, I'm not living my life, I'm not happy at all ever. So I just, I just decided to not, I just don't want to be like that anymore.
I think that's very similar to like binge eating, because I remember when I have moments when I'd feel sad and I'll binge eat, and then I'll feel worse and I'm like, I'm not doing that again. So
Yeah.
I do understand to some extent where you're coming from, and at least even though you feel bad, you put out the effort to change that. What was the
Mm-hmm.
process like? What were the steps you had to take to get the ball rolling?
So it was, like it wasn't one specific thing. It was the next day, like waking up and getting out of bed and just like trying to, as difficult as it was, put myself in a different mindset and trying not to be the same. And so I did a lot of reading about it. I looked into and did some therapy about it. I tried 800 different hobbies just to try and distract myself from it, or put trying to accomplish something constructive. Like I took up guitar, I took up swimming, like just anything to try and create like a constructive habit as opposed to like a destructive one, drinking or whatever, right? Just kind of wallowing in my own depression. But it was really, really hard to do because I had, for 20 something years of my life, right? You think one way, and it's very, very hard to change your your way of thinking and how you go about things. And so just that initial morning was probably the hardest one, because it's like, no, I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna think like that the world is ending, or like everything is horrible, or that I'm a terrible person, and it's, getting that initial steps of getting out of that destructive cycle, which you just keep perpetuating on your own, and just gets worse and worse. That's the hardest part.
It
So
is. It is. And even though I'm not an alcoholic, I can relate where depression is concerned, because you feel bad. You lay in the bed, you don't move, you don't do anything about it because you feel bad. So you lack the capacity to put out the
mhm.
effort to do anything about it. And then the next day comes and you're like, I feel bad that I wasted the last day not doing anything. And then the cycle continues, because you end up feeling bad that you're wasting time and not doing anything about it. And because you feel bad, you end up wasting time and not doing anything about it.
Yep,
It is,
100%.
it's a horrible cycle, but
Mhm.
I think the first step is to figure out what will make you feel better healthily. Because
Mhm.
sometimes you have to feel better first before you can make better decisions. If you get what I
Yes.
mean, like you can't, you have to take up something that will help soothe you first, then
Mhm.
take a step forward. At least
Yeah,
that's my
that's exactly it.
experience. So you said that your father was an alcoholic and many of your
Mhm.
family was. Have you experienced where it has affected their relationship with each other? And what was it like growing up with your father being alcoholic?
So Growing up, I actually didn't see it a whole lot because my mom took great steps to shield us from that, and she made sure that we like didn't see our dad drunk. Like the first time I ever saw my dad drunk was New Year's Eve, and I think I was 16 or 17. So my mom actually was like she was a buffer between us. My mom, her dad left when she was younger, and so her thing was that she didn't want she came from a quote unquote broken home, and she didn't want us to experience the same thing. So she took all necessary steps to, not for us to not see our dad like that. She hid a lot of stuff from us, and like looking back on it, I don't know if that was the right thing to do or not. But my mom did her best, and she did it out of love. And then as we got older, and my parents eventually split up, now we see how my dad actually is, and it's definitely affected like the relationship between him and I. We used to be fairly close when I was younger, in my late teens and early 20s, and now the relationship is quite strained. And we've had a couple of instances of conflict where we haven't spoken actually for 6 months, almost a year, and alcohol played a part in that, because my dad, when he drinks, he kind of gets angry. So and he says things he doesn't mean. And then my whole family too, they're not very good at my dad's side, not very good at dealing with their feelings. And there's parts of the family that don't talk to each other because they just hold grudges for years. And yeah, it's just they don't know how to process their feelings properly, which in turn leads to like the alcohol abuse, because they just don't know what to do. And I know my dad's like tried therapy. He's done medication too, but then he's one of those people who, well, I'm feeling good, I don't need to take it anymore. And so then he stops taking it, and then he starts drinking again, and then he makes bad decisions. And yeah, so I mean, it's not something I noticed when I was growing up, but it's something that I've become much more aware of as I've gotten older. And it's one of the reasons that I rarely ever drink. Like I might have 3 drinks a year now, maybe. And that's definitely like one of the reasons I don't drink anymore. My brother's the same way. My brother had a number of bouts with depression, and he rarely ever drinks anymore too. At one point, he was drinking like heavily 2 to 3 times a week, and by heavily I mean like enough to get drunk. So he's like that. Yeah, like we've had similar experiences with alcohol. So he's much the same way I am. He rarely ever drinks at all. And like I think this speaks to kind of like how depression's genetic, because my sister also had bouts with depression as well, not alcohol related, I don't believe, but yeah, all 3 of us, myself and my 2 siblings, have had really like some really bad depression years. So yeah, it's interesting, like all this stuff I never knew growing up, and then as I've gotten older, it's come out, right? So yeah.
Everything's falling into place, and you have the mindset to understand what exactly is going on. And I would say depression is genetic in some way, because my mother has severe depression and
Mhm.
anxiety. I have depression. I think my siblings have it, even though we're not
Mhm.
close. So I'm not sure how it's affecting them, but I can tell in some areas that they do have it. And you just have to actively work, not to fight against it really, but to work with it.
Mhm.
And,
Yep.
you know, so what has, like, how do you support somebody who is going down that part to alcoholism?
So there's only so much you can do, and really, um, you have to, you can be as supportive. It's really just kind of listening and trying to be like, look, if you ever need somebody to talk to, text me, call me, things like that. And you can listen, and you have to try your best not to judge that person. It's really hard when it's somebody closer to you. Like I've talked to my dad on numerous occasions, and it's really hard to listen to him because like the consequences of him drinking and making bad decisions, like, you know, they filtered their way down to me. So since it directly affects me, it's a lot more difficult. With a friend or somebody that I've known for a long time, it's a little bit easier. You can, like I said, you can just kind of be there for them. But at the end of the day, there's only so much that you can kind of do for somebody. You can suggest therapy. You can suggest, yeah, you probably shouldn't drink. You can suggest a number of things, but if somebody doesn't want to admit they have a problem, or if they don't want
Yeah.
to actively seek help, or they're in denial or whatever,
There's nothing you
there's
can
nothing you
do.
can do. You have to, and this is the key thing that I've learned about like depression. You have to want to change for yourself, and nobody can make you do it. They can give Somebody can give you all the ultimatums in the world. My mom threatened to leave my dad so many times. Like, if you'll just get better, and she just kept giving him chances until she just ran out of patience. But you can do whatever. You can threaten whatever you're going to threaten. Um, and if they don't actively want to change for themselves, then they're not going to. And it's just the reality of it.
That's true, actually. And that is something that we all need to learn. Yes, we don't want to see the people that we love walking into fire, but you can't stop it if you can't let them, if they aren't aware and they won't admit that they need to change. And it is a hard lesson to continue to learn, but it's very important because we can run ourselves at wreck trying to save somebody who isn't aware that there is a problem or that they need to stop doing what they're doing, and it will be consequences later down that they won't be able to deal with. But I mean, we have to look after ourselves first
Mhm.
before we can extend ourselves to others, and that is also something that we need to come to terms with as
Yep.
individuals. um as for depression, how do you stop someone from self-soothing? Well, I know you can't stop someone, but how do you stop yourself from self-soothing enough that you can recognize that a person is self-soothing?
Self-soothing, did you say?
Yeah.
What do you
Like,
mean by?
you're sad, so you're going to turn to a substance to kind of
Oh, I
help you
see.
feel better.
Um, I'm not sure exactly. I don't know too many people who I've known lots of people who deal with depression, but not a lot who use substance as kind of soothing method. Other than my dad, and that kind of happened way before I realized it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not entirely, like, for me it was more, like I said, it was more of, I'm sitting here trying to get drunk and I can't because I'm sad, and it's like, maybe this isn't the way to deal with this. And so, like, yeah, it's just sort of coming, that for me it was like coming to it on my own. So how to see it in other people, um like, other than the things that I've read about it, where the telltale signs, where,
Mm-hmm.
they they start becoming, like, they start cutting off communications and stuff like that, or it just seems like they're withdrawing, but that's more related to depression than substance abuse.
I
Because
do
you
that.
because somebody yeah, because somebody could, like, they could be using, and you would never know. It's possible.
Yeah.
People are really, really good at putting on a front of that they're a well-adjusted person, and they could be a mess inside. I have a particular friend who, I've known her for several years, and I would always say that, you seem like a really good person. You seem like you have your life together, and she's dealing with. She's basically taking a year off work to deal with childhood trauma, and she's like kind of rebuilding her life. I would have never known that. And you look at some
Wow.
celebrity, yeah, you look at some celebrity suicide, right? Chris Cornell and Robin Williams, a comedian, seemed like he was happy. And I mean, I know he got like a terminal illness diagnosis, but you wouldn't think somebody like that would kill themselves. Like Anthony
Yeah, that's
Bourdain,
true.
same thing, right? I mean, people can put it's really hard to detect that. And unless you know the person really well, you wouldn't be able to really, I don't think you'd really be able to tell. And again, like I have a couple of friends, I would probably notice behavioral differences and reach out, but the average everyday person, it's probably, you probably would never know.
Yeah, that's true because you have to know them personally because people have their faces that they show to others and
Hmm.
then the faces that they show to themselves. And it's not in a negative way, but it's more so to protect others from feeling like, oh, they're a burden or something to that effect when they're in trouble or feeling negatively. So
Hmm.
I get it, I understand it, but it is very important to, let somebody know when you're not really feeling negative. And I know some of my friends is going to watch this and talking about, oh, you don't do that. I know, child. I know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it. So you mentioned therapy, right?
Mhm.
How has therapy been and how long were you in therapy for? How has it
So
been?
I have been in and out of therapy like since my mid 20s. Just now I use it as a tool because I know, like, I have a much greater awareness now of when I'm kind of sliding into
Mm-hmm.
a situation where depression might creep back up. Again, the lesson, another lesson about depression is that it never goes away. It's always there, just kind of waiting. Like, it's kind of
Yes,
like an insidious thing in the background, just kind of waiting for you to like
flip.
start to slide, and then it just kind of seeps in there. So you have to be really aware of this, like, how you feel emotionally and where you're at, and how you, like, it's because it's very easy to slide back into that. So I've seen therapists just for regular depression. I'm separated, but we did couples counseling, so there was some therapy around that, and that actually helped me come to the conclusion that I um, probably shouldn't be married anymore. Um, but
That's so sad, but I understand. It's for the
yeah,
best.
it is. And there were, I wasn't a very good husband. I did not treat my ex-wife very well, and so there was a lot of guilt and potential, like, it could have gone the depression route. Uh, but I went to therapy and found like an avenues to deal with guilt, whether it's like mindfulness or um, exercise or whatever. But I've gotten to the point where my ex and I, we have like a pretty good relationship now. I actually asked her, "Do you think I'm a better person?" She said yes. So progress, yay. So yeah, it's you're constantly working on yourself. So therapy is really good in that aspect. You can kind of open up and just, you have an unbiased third party who knows nothing about you, and
Mm-hmm.
their job is not to judge you. So you go in there and you say, like, yeah, like, I was so terrible to my ex, and like I used gaslighting on her. I didn't even know I was doing it, and I feel so terrible. And it's like, I think I'm a narcissist. And they're like, you're not a narcissist. Well, how do you know? Because narcissists don't go to therapy. I'm like,
They
okay.
don't. They don't.
Right.
Yeah,
So
they don't.
it's one of those things where they can just come back at you with their unbiased opinion, and they can say, well, okay, like, you might be this now, but here's how we can get you to better. And like, these are the steps. Here's things you can do. Breathing exercises, like meditation stuff. They can suggest just like longer term therapy or medication or whatever. And it's just, therapy is the best. It's so great. I recommend. Yeah, like, I used to be one of those people. It's like, oh, I don't want to go to and speak to somebody and have them analyze me and blah blah blah. And now it's like, what was I thinking? Because it's just really so good. You can just, it's cathartic. You can just get your feelings out there, and like I said, the person's not there. If they judge you, they're a bad therapist. But they're there to just listen and then tell you, you're not the world's worst person. Hundreds, thousands of people have gone through the same thing you're going through. They've been where you have been, and like, here's how we can help you. And that's, it helps a lot, at least for me, to have like a possible light at the end of the tunnel. and to see like that you could come out of this, but here's how we can get you there. It just takes work. So I recommend therapy to everyone.
I'm glad that you first have to recognize the problem and admit that you have the problem, and the fact that you did that and realize that you need to be a better person just shows how already good you are. You just need to work on yourself.
Yeah.
And that a lot of us are so self-absorbed that we can't even see our flaws that can be worked on. And that's bad because it lead to a lot of problems that are unnecessary when we're too attached to who we are and no, I'm this person, and that's not who you are, but you are convinced that that's who you are. That's
Hmm.
bad. But yeah, I haven't, because of where I am in Jamaica, where therapy is concerned, it's kind of hard for regular people to afford therapy.
Yeah.
And at school, they have like two psychologists and a psychiatrist. Those two psychologists only come like once a month. So, like,
Oh wow.
yeah, the system is really bad. So what I do is I try to find my specific things that I struggle with because I'm painfully self-aware. So I
Hmm.
find the problems that I struggle with, and then I search for books on it. So like I struggle with procrastination, or say I struggle with codependency, or say I struggle with let's see, what's the other one? I just read books for those problems instead
Right.
of going off into a tangent, finding self-help books that isn't really relating to me as a person. But yeah, that's what I do. Um, for your other siblings, what have they? Do you guys talk about depression? What's the conversation like there?
Not really. We're not super close. I only know that they went through it because my mom's told me, really. My mom's kind of open about it because she had to deal with it so much with my dad, and she doesn't want to see her kids go through the same thing. Because my mom really, really loves us all. Like, my mom's the best, but I'm sure everybody says that, but my mom is the best. But yeah, so she's just kind of told me, and I think she told me just kind of let me know that I wasn't the only one who in the family, like between the three of us, who has gone through things like that. And we've had very detailed discussions now because everything's out in the open, so we can openly talk about my dad. But I don't really talk. My siblings are a little bit more private than I am, so they don't readily like to talk about that stuff. And my brother has. It's interesting actually, like how the dynamic has changed because I used to be very withdrawn and introverted in my youth, and my brother was very outgoing and outspoken. And it's basically we both done a 180 where he's just more he's very stoic, and he's very like not withdrawn, but just he kind of keeps stuff to himself a little bit more. I think he shares a lot with his wife, but to he wouldn't come on a show like this and talk about it. He's private. So
Oh,
it's funny how things turned out. My mom always said, she's like, if you had told me how you would turn out and how your brother would turn out, I would have just laughed at them because there would be no way. So it's just funny how that works. But yeah, we just don't really talk about it.
oh. I hope someday you guys can talk about it because it's very important, and it helps to spread the awareness that you're not weak or you're not anything, nothing is not wrong with you. Even animals
Yeah.
experience it. Dogs have anxiety, they do
Hmm.
have depression, and there are certain factors and environmental things that trigger these behaviors. So it's not really unique, and you don't have to feel alone. And we're
Hmm.
in a day and age now where we're talking about it. People don't say a psychologist as useless anymore.
Yeah.
I know that they are exhausted, and they probably have to have their own therapist because of the amount of people that they have to be there for. Although I figure they probably know how to compartmentalize. Is that the word,
Yeah.
compartmentalize?
Compartmentalize. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but it still can affect them, But I'm
Hmm.
glad that your mother is the type of person she is, because she's able to facilitate the growth or the openness of depression. Because here in Jamaica, most of the mothers, they tend to be very toxic and withdrawn. It's like you have to, if you talk about things, oh, I put shelter over here, I give you money to go to school, I give you food, I give you everything, I solve your needs. You don't have no reason to be sad. You don't. It's like invalidating. And I know that it is not their fault. They don't know how to deal with it, because when they were growing up, that's the same treatment they have
Hmm.
received. So they think that it's okay. Or maybe they just don't. Some people are so comfortable with how things are that they fear change. They fear how
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
change looks. So they just um sit with the same issue for years and years and years, and you kind of wonder why they do that. But it's because of the fear of change, and change indicates that there is an unknown and we don't know everything. And
Yeah.
because a lot of people fear the unknown, they stick where they're comfortable with what they know, and that's the problem.
Yeah. I would also add that there are people like who've never experienced depression. Again, so like my mom's like good about talking about it, but my mom is a situational depression where like her grandmother who raised her when she was a kid, since she was a kid, like died when I was 17 or 18. My mom was sad. That's like situational depression. But my
Yeah.
mom's never had depression, like actual depression. So from that person's point of view, they don't get it. They have no idea what it's like. And
That
sometimes
can
it
be
takes,
invalidating, because I've
yeah.
I've had situations where I'd have to walk away and say, you know, this is not for me, because you're very invalidating just because you don't know. It's like somebody having cancer and you go, oh, you know, well, it will get better soon. Or,
Yeah, it's not so bad, or
yeah,
you know what I mean. And so they don't understand what it's like. They have no idea. And so when you say, the mothers will be, well, I give you roof over your head, I give you money to go to college, stuff like that, why are you sad? That smacks of, they don't get it because they possibly haven't been depressed. So why are you sad? You know what I mean? And or the whole it could always be worse thing. It's like, yeah, but that's like not how depression works. And so it's
yeah,
very,
invalidating.
yeah, yeah. And they don't mean to do it. It's just they just don't get it.
Yeah,
And it sometimes it takes somebody who's gone through, and I know everybody's different, and like me trying to understand my friend's childhood trauma is way different from me talking about my depression because her experience is
different.
entirely different than mine. But it's one of those I can say, you know what, I've been depressed before. Um, it sucks, and like, hey, here's a hand that you can take like anytime you need it. Less so than, well, I don't get what you're going through, so it can't be that bad. Or mine was worse than yours, or whatever. It's more like,
Like a
hey, like I've gone through
competition.
something similar. Text me or call me, like if you need to chat or whatever, or
I can
let's go
help
for a
you
coffee.
get
And you,
through this because I've been there and I know some
yeah,
things that might help.
yeah. And
So,
I'm not going to sit here and judge you and say you should be better by now. I'm never
yeah.
going to do that, right? Whereas somebody else might be like, well, it's been a year, like get your shit together and go get a
Yeah.
job. And it's like, no, that's not how this works, like at all.
Yeah. Like with breakups, some people don't understand how attachment works, and that sometimes, not sometimes, but attachments do trigger when it's off, like you're no longer with the person, it can trigger grief.
Hmm.
And that grief can manifest into depression, because even though that person isn't dead, you lost a person. So it does trigger the grief response. But a lot of people don't understand that. They think that some people actually go into other relationships quickly because they don't want to face the
Yes.
emotions from the previous one. While other people, they take a while before they can even get in the headspace to get into a relationship again. And a lot of people make being single look like it's this horrible thing and you are a loser if you're single. But really, it's not that serious. It's just that the person is probably figuring out how to go through and get through certain things. And you, because you have been into relationship after relationship after relationship, you don't understand what it's like to sit with
Mhm.
yourself and your own feelings. And a lot of people fear themselves so much that they operate on a surface level. They
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
who
No,
they
I
are because they are afraid of it. They're afraid of feeling the emotions and all of that, which comes out as them being quite shallow. But I believe it's because they don't take the time out to get to know themselves and sit with the emotions, because it's very uncomfortable. It will make you want to
100% agree.
run from yourself. So I do get it, but I still feel like you have to balance it out, else you won't get the growth that you need to reach where you need to be. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I've known lots of people who just jump in between as soon as they're divorced or separated or whatever for like a month, and then they're living with somebody else. I'm like, what are you doing? Or like, I had a friend that he you know his wife left them, or yeah, and so he immediately tried to start dating, and the first serious relationship, like they moved in together inside of a couple months being with each other. I'm like, I don't know, man. But
Yeah.
like sometimes hey, it could work out. What do I know? But it's one of those things where I don't think that person let like
The time heal.
took the time to be okay with being by themselves. And me, I'm
Yeah.
like, it's funny that you say like people's like, oh, you're a loser if you're single. Being single is awesome. I can do whatever I want. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
I had that
But
experience too. So much so that I became hesitant to want a relationship after, because I was
mhm.
content with myself, my hobbies, what I was doing, who the person I become, the knowledge I've gained, you know. It's really eye opening. Yeah.
Yeah, and you get to the point, and I think choosing to date after you get to that point is more okay. I know myself now, and I know like who I would be happy with. You're much more likely to find a partner um, that actually like supports and makes you happy. And even if you're single, and I say this, like you don't need to like be in a relationship. You can have a support network, like 2, 3 people, whatever, that you could like text or call or whatever if you need help. Like I had a
Mhm.
friend, like I've helped him move 2 or 3 times. He's helped me move 2 or 3 times, and just like he recently unfortunately lost his job, and like he had this post where he's like, I have days, because we have a in Canada we have called like Bell Let's Talk, where it's like, although there's a little bit more controversy around it right now because it's these days, but it like the idea of it is good, where we're just kind of trying to dispel the some of the myths and stigmas around mental health. And so he posted like, some days are difficult for me, and I have a lot of anxiety, and I have a lot of worries about finding work and blah blah blah. And I just reached out to him. I said, like, man, if you ever need to talk, like, I'm always here. And just like something like that. It's just um you don't need necessarily to be in a relationship to have somebody
Yeah.
that supports you. You can
I,
have like very close friends who that you can rely
amen to
on. And
that.
yeah,
I,
it doesn't have to be a romantic thing.
I think a lot of people don't understand the value of friendship. They don't
Hmm.
understand the value, and so they look to their partners or romantical partners for that type of friendship. I was lucky enough to realize that even when I was single at the time, I didn't feel alone because I had so many friends. Not so many friends, but I had very real friends that were there and check up on me, and we hang out, we do stuff together, we go out to eat, we we hang out when I feel like I need social interaction and stuff like that, and
Hmm.
when they need social interaction. So I didn't quite feel alone, even though I was single at the time, and I was so like invest in my hobbies that it didn't even feel like it felt normal to me, which is
Yeah.
good because a lot of people can't really sit by themselves and figure themselves out.
Yeah, exactly.
But before we end, I know that you have a podcast called the Conquer Conquest.
Confer Culture.
Confer, my
That's okay.
bad. Confer
That's okay.
Culture. What's it
Yes.
about?
It's about all things pop culture. We discuss film and television and art and sometimes books, although not super often. I've done everything from film and TV reviews to ranking the Star Wars films. My most recent episode, I discussed with one of my good friends about comparing two films by the same director, The Witch and the Lighthouse, both directed by the same person, and we just kind of did a compare contrast. And he likes The Witch better, I like The Lighthouse better, so we just talked about that for about an hour and 45 minutes. But yeah, I've done ones where I've talked about my favorite artist, Trent Reznor, who's like the leader of Nine Inch Nails. So music, I've done a few about music, done a few about anime, and yeah, it's just kind of like a sort of a pop culture potpourri, as it were.
Okay.
And I'm really excited about a number of episodes in the near future because I've got a whole bunch of new and interesting guests, more women, more minorities, and a number of
That
people from
sounds
the
fun.
LGBTQ community. So I'm really excited. I'm going to have a discussion really soon about the depiction of women in film and whether or not it's gotten any better over the years. So
That
yeah,
sounds
very
really
excited.
good. I'd actually listen to that to hear the views and what other people think. Sounds good. I'm going to plug everything in the description box so when the episode is out, the people will know where to find you and
Yep.
all of that good stuff.
So the podcast again, Confer Culture. I'm on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, a whole bunch of other places that I just can't remember because I post to somewhere where they just send it out to a whole bunch of
Yeah.
places. If you search it, you can find it. I'm pretty high in the Google search list because I have a unique podcast name, which is good. I post episodes every Wednesday, and I don't know why I picked that day, just because nobody posts Wednesday. And you can find me. Social media, Chris Murphy 40 on Instagram, at ABC Murphy on Twitter. Facebook might be a little bit more difficult because there are a lot of Chris Murphys on Facebook.
No worries. I'll put everything in the description box so that they
Yeah.
can just click on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I have an email address specifically for my podcast, conferculture@gmail.com. And so you can email me with feedback on that, or like you can drop a comment in the wherever place that you can consume the podcast too as well. So yeah.
Interesting. That sounds really good. I'm excited for you as well. I'm going to check out that episode that you just mentioned about women and film. So I'm going to subscribe to figure out when it would be out and stuff.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. I'm recording it later this evening, so I don't know. It all depends on when I publish it. I'm hoping to get it up the following Wednesday, but we'll see. Sometimes people have to cancel or whatever, so I may not. But
Yeah.
the plan is to record it later this evening. So
All right. Okay. So anything that you want to say about depression or any question that I haven't asked, but you'd like to let the audience know?
I would just say that you're not alone. You're not a bad person. You are worth something. I promise you. If you weren't alive anymore, somebody would notice. It would make someone sad. Get therapy. Get look at resources. Try different things to address your issues. It's not always a losing battle. You can do it. It just takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of self-awareness, but it is doable. I've done it, and if I can do it, other people can. And yeah, like you're not alone. Lots of people go through this, and you're not weak for wanting to get help or to admit that you have problems or issues you need to deal with.
Amen to that. And I want to thank you for coming. This was a very good episode. I really enjoyed it. And I know that my audience will enjoy it as well. And I hope you'll come back next time to talk about you know, how you're progressing and stuff like that. Even though you've already progressed, but there's more improvements. There's always
Yeah,
improvement.
always.
So,
Hmm.
I'd hope to see you back again. And I hope you have a great day. And my audience that are listening have a great day as well. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it, and I'm very passionate about mental health, and I 100% would come back on and talk about it again. So again, thanks.
Yeah. So until then, I'm going to see you later. So thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of the Banana Show. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode and that you remember to like, subscribe, and share. Let me know what you think about the episode. You can email me or you can comment on the episode on YouTube when it's posted. Again, thank you for tuning in and keep on keeping on. I'll see you next time in another episode.